Good morning and welcome to the Sunday service. This morning we're going to meditate few minutes. After that, Mr. Sai is going to give a Dhamma talk. Right now, meditation is going to lead Kashanti.
All right. Relax. Find a comfortable position. Take a few deep breaths. May I be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always find fulfillment. May I also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May my teachers, my friends and relatives, brothers and sisters, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May those who I encounter, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May those who wish me ill will, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May all creatures arisen in these realms, either with form or without, with consciousness or without, may they be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relief. Meditate for a few minutes, wishing loving kindness, and meditate until you hear the bell. Sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Kashanti, leading the meditation. Next item is Dhamma talk. Today our speaker, Mr. Sai Mahrjan. Sai is coming to our temple almost more than 10 years, giving Dhamma talk once a month. Sai, we really appreciate about your time and energy is given to us. You have to come another few years at least.
That's it, Bante?
At least 5-6 years. All right, so you can start with Dhamma talk. He's a great teacher. He's a very busy person, you know. He's teaching his class in universities. He's going to the different states, giving Dhamma talk, plus he's take care of his baby and family. So he's very busy person, always going to different temple. Lot of monks are his friends. He's associated with all the temples, monks around the Southern California. So Sai, we are very happy to see you today. So you can start your Dhamma talk right now.
Thank you, Bante. Anicca sankhara uppadavaya dhammino uppajjitva nirujjanti etang samo sukho. Venerable Santi and all other venerable sirs and their Dhamma friends, I hope you had a good morning. We are approaching summer, aren't we? Doesn't feel like it, but we can feel the weather is changing. Now, if you have to explain, why we get wildfire, how many of you are comfortable? Yeah, I can explain how that works. Any hands? So if you have to explain, why do we have wildfire? How it gets started. You all know, right? I see the head nods. Or let's say there's a rain or storm. You can explain how that works, right? But there was a time people didn't know that, right? There was some time back before all the technology, all the knowledge that we have today. I'm talking about a lot further than the Buddha's time, probably 6,000, 7,000 years back. When these natural phenomena occurred, people didn't know. They started fearing. If there's a wildfire, they didn't understand how it started, or a storm. None of those were clear to them, and people started attributing to some external forces, right? They started claiming or saying, that there must be something in the fire itself. There must be another being or a power in that fire, and we're not doing something right. That's why the fire is upset, and that's why it's burning our homes. And same thing to water, same thing to wind. So I'm talking about how the very early Sanskrit literature, if you look, not even Sanskrit, even before Sanskrit, Vedic language. This is the language, the father to Sanskrit itself. People started thinking, and just like now, a lot of people don't have much to do. They would start writing poems. They would start talking about the weather in their own understanding. So they started drafting poem about fire, rain, you name it, all the natural phenomena. And compilation or combination of all those writing we call Rig Veda. So that's the time the very first Vedic book was not necessarily a book, but people started having a list of ideas about how nature worked. So I'm trying to give you the background, how we look at the nature. There are still things, if you happen to see that Starlink object flying around, we freaked out. My wife and I were walking my daughter one day, and we saw this like a long string of light. It was evening, so you can't see properly. We thought it was an alien invasion. or we freaked out because we have limited perception, right? When your perception cannot explain what's happening, we attribute to extraterrestrial. We still do that 6,000 years later. So those days people did that, and it continued to evolve. And that's how, if you look at the Sanskrit literature, Hinduism or Brahmanism, they have a lot of books. They wrote 4 big compilation of books: Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharvan. So 4 types of Vedic books. And they were not very clear because some people wrote them just, almost like a daydreaming ideas. And they need to explain them. Then there's a later development. There's a Brahmin, there is Upanishad. So the time period continued to evolve. And the group of people really liked it. And they enjoyed writing these kind of books. And they did not like meditation. And if you look at, if you know Sanskrit or any of the Asian words, in Asia, in Sri Lanka, we call education adhyapana. That means education. The meaning, the origin of word is na dhyapana. That means people, those who don't meditate, go to school. You see that? Dhyapana or dhyana means, you know the word. Dhyana is meditation, right? Adhyapana or na dhyapana means people, those who meditate, they go to school. So that's how a tradition of education started. And they continue to contribute and develop more literature. There's another group who did not like that practice. They rather meditate. And they are called Dhyapana, or meditators. So this tradition continued, and they have trying to come to the Buddha now. It's a long history, a lot of stories that explains why Buddha had a stand that he had in 2600 BC. So during Buddha's time, there were a lot of people relied on how those Vedas were written, and it became a law. And if you go back to India, even after 6,000 years later, there's a caste system. It's similar to here, but you don't have caste system here, more like a class system, right? High class, middle class, low class, no class. I don't know if there's a no class, but there's some kind of a discrimination or distinction between different groups. These Vedas define people, and they continue to separate society. There was a group called Brahmanas who used to be the priests and ministers, and there was the rulers, there was a worker, there was a low-class worker. And this tradition continued even during the time of the Buddha. And there are so many suttas. Every time you read, you find these people have different belief. Makes sense, because we're talking about the nature. If you look at the different sciences, we see a lot of people take on one piece of natural phenomena and they make it a full discipline, right? There's a physics, chemistry, oceanology, all kind of biology. So similar to that, luckily now we study them as a scientific ideas, but during the Buddha's time, it was practiced as religions. So if you look at the second teaching in the long discourses, Samanyapala Sutta, or that has 62 different, so-called, like a small religions. They have different views about the world, and they all tie back to the nature, either the nature outside or inside human body. And I wanted to bring that because people started to have 2 main classes. One, those who believe in spirituality. So it is slightly different during the Buddha's time. Spirituality is those who are denying the physical aspect of human life. They believe that the physical world is just not part of it. There is more in spirituality. You need to cultivate your mind, and that's why they started practicing meditation. They were not the book writers, they were more meditators. They practiced meditation, and people made very big progress in that journey. And that's how we know when Buddha was in search for teaching, he went to a couple of those teachers, Alar Kalam and Uddakaram Buddha. Those are 2 great teachers who have achieved 8th highest meditation stage. And if you practice meditation deeper, you can alter your physical composition. And that's where, if you learn about meditation, you might have heard extrasensory perception. You can have divine ear, you can bypass physical objects without being damaged. So that is possible when you cultivate your mind deeper, meditate deeper, and mind can change. And if you're interested, I can talk more about that some other time, how that works. That is one group. The other group were more into materialistic world. They did not see any value in mind because you can't see mind. So how can you say you can cultivate mind? So it's better to stick to materialistic world, right? Your physical presence, your body is the real. And those two traditions continued. And whichever tradition you choose, there is an extreme. So in Dhammacakka Sutta, Buddha talk about two extreme views. One is self-gratification. If the person is more materialistic, they would engage in self-gratification. They would do anything to entertain their senses, entertain their body. There's another group who deny that part. They say there's no physical or substantial physical body, there's only mind that exists. So let's work on that. Only way to purify that mind is to torture this body. And that group is self-mortification. They would engage in very rigorous austerities practices. So those are two extremes, and Buddha had to be during that time. And there was one story I want to relate to because that will help us to conclude this talk. So if you think of yourself, when you sometime you might have said like, I am angry, right? I'm angry, I hate pizza. Anybody here? Maybe not. Okay. So you save those expressions, right? I am angry, I hate traffic, I don't like my boss, I love my kids. All these expressions that you're saying with the word I, that's what is the problem. And I mentioned at the beginning of the Pali verses, anicca vada sankhara, uppadavai dhammino. All this, our experience is a conditioned experience that has to do with not just mind, not just body. It has to be the work of both. Without physical body, there is no way that you can experience the contact, and there is no way to have a perception, and no way to have this life. And without mind, this body is just like a piece of log. There is no any life in it. So during the Buddha's time, this one young man who was very upset at the Buddha, and hopefully you will relate to this story later, he saw the Buddha walking by because he had two other brothers who became monk after listening to the Buddha, and he was not happy about it. He was a Brahmin, and there is again, when you have a caste system, Buddha was considered lower than Brahmins because he was warrior. So he was upset, the older brother was upset, and he saw him on his walk, and he started yelling at the Buddha, saying all kind of nasty things to the Buddha. And Buddha was standing there. If we were that person, we can take so much, right? Somebody is yelling at you, you may be mindful, you may be patient, but at some point, you will lose yourself, right? You might throw a punch or two, because, okay, that's too much. But Buddha was able to withhold his reaction and let him finish. And when the guy was standing there yelling at the Buddha for a while, hearing nothing in return, he stopped. And you should try that. If you're having argument with somebody, you should stop yourself, and you will see like, it's your turn, come on, say something so I can say more. Doesn't happen. So Buddha asked him a question. Do you ever invite guests in your house out of nowhere? He was yelling at the Buddha, but the question was like, do you ever invite guests? Like, what is this? And Buddha said like, yeah, I do. And the guy said, yes, I do. And Buddha asked, so how do you treat them? Well, we prepare nice feast, right? Meal, drink, everything, and we serve them. Why do you ask? But what do you do when your guest says they are full, they don't need to eat anything, or they don't want to accept your food? Well, like, it's a well-prepared food. Why waste? I'll invite my family and enjoy the food that we have prepared. And Buddha, oh, good to know that. Whatever you told me for a few minutes, I'm not ready to accept any of them. You can have them all. So, how smart of Buddha, right? But the point is, how did Buddha manage to stay unaffected in those kind of disgraceful or criticism? Because the idea of no self, the identity that we identify as I am Sailesh, I am Russell, I am Nam, that identity is the problem. And I'm not saying it's the problem, you change it to another one, then that becomes a problem. It's more so understanding where this problem starts, right? We call the body more when I say I am a person, it is a manifestation of 5 aggregates. You may have heard of them. And I'll try to give you more everyday example to explain how we come up with this idea of self. And Buddhism tries to show that in the 2 extremes I mentioned earlier, in one extreme they reject mind. In the other extreme they reject physical body. And they're all looking for something that is substantial, that is everlasting, or absolute truth. But Buddha's rejection, Buddha's teaching of no self has to do with there is no such thing as substantial self or substantial physical body. It is continuously conditioned. So the first one is rupa. Rupa we identify as me and I. I'm wearing a blue shirt, brown, gray pant, my glasses, my haircut, all, and the way I talk, the way I appear, that is not all rupa or corporeal or physical body. That is 1 out of 28 types of physical, the elements. There are 28 elements. And we call that this is my body. If this body were to call mine, there should be something that you can control, to keep it simple. I don't want to grow old. Can I ask my body to stop aging? I don't want to get sick. Can I keep my body from getting sick? I was making a little furniture and I had a nail gun in my finger. Can I reverse that? Can I ask my body to, okay, you are mine, so let's heal that faster? Or you get the point. The physical body, if it is yours, if it is I, so to claim, there should be some level of control. Maybe your pet may be more your than your body itself, because your pet listens to you more than your body does. So based on that, your body is made of different elements, and your body needs kabalingahara. It has to do with food, the nourishment. The one of the 4 nourishment I'll talk a little more is the type of food that we consume. Now that food has, not everything is digested, but there is an energy that will sustain this body, right? There's more. This body is sustained by our karmic force that we call tejo dhatu, or the nature of heat and cold keeps this body functioning. And tejo dhatu is maintained based on your karma. That's how we continue to stay alive. People, those who have done X amount of karma, they live so many years. When that karma is coming to an end, there's a conclusion, because it's an energy, sort of, that continue to feed more, and when the energy exhausted, it should extinct. And same thing with this body. So this physical body continues to last because of the food we eat, the karmic force we have, and the tejo dhatu, the heat that we maintain inside because of the karmic force. That there is no self in it. It is hard to identify which part is self. However, imagine how much fight we have because of this body. See that problem with I. I am black, I am white, I am brown, I am Muslim, I am Buddhist. It all comes from that notion that we apply to. Most of it is like an external appearance. You peel the skin off, there is nothing identifiable. Right? We all have similar, almost identical composition. We're made of similar cells, we're made of similar organs. I don't know if any race has extra lung or extra kidney. I don't know that yet. But we divide because of how we look, because we tie that with that self. And sometimes it could be individual self, sometimes it's a collective self. And that's how this racism, the discrimination start. We're not understanding, hey, there is no such thing called you in there, it's just your body. That's self, the rupa part. And Vedana is another very interesting one, is a feeling. Now, feeling comes in three forms according to Buddhist analysis. And that either that one is pleasant, right, or unpleasant, or dukkha neutral. Not so much neutral like you don't feel it, there's no much reaction to it. It's like it neither entertains you nor disappoints you. So these three kind of feelings, and there are many other forms. To keep it basic, your body is made of physical, the body, the physical part, rupa, and the second one is feeling. We all have those, and every experience that we go through has some kind of feeling. You can't say, I don't feel anything for this experience. That means you might have a neutral feeling. It doesn't sound like a feeling, but it is a form of feeling. Now, people identify this feeling as self. How? Well, I'll ask you. So their feeling can come in many forms, right? The physical contact, taste, sight, they all give you some kind of feeling. Smell gives you feeling. So if you are wearing perfume, you make that perfume your identity. That's my smell. People don't do that with if you're stinky, right? That's my smell, but more like a good smell you associated with it. But you also identify with the taste. You know, if you're a chef or a cook, when you cook certain food, you identify, oh, this is my type of flavor, or the sight, or the contact. So we identify with those self, but in fact, it is the manifestation of few things. The external stimuli, your sensories that is working well, and there's a presence of conscious. That's how feeling arises. Chakkung cha paticca uppajjati chakku viññāna. And tinnang sampasso. So when there is we take any sensation, either eye or ear, nose, tongue, or body, and one of those meet with the external world. If it is your eye, it should contact with the light and the object, and your consciousness says there's something visible, and you have a seeing consciousness. And that seeing consciousness gives you impression of that object, and you feel it. You feel it's a pleasant, unpleasant, like, dislike, right? So, in essence, your feeling, disregarding which sensory you use, is associated with that three objects coming together, and it's not yours. You remove any of them, there is no contact. But we identify so much, and people spend sometimes millions of dollars to continue to have that experience, whether it is the taste or smell or touch. There is ongoing desire for it. There's a self-interest in it. That's how we affiliate this contact with self, right? That does not stop. And that leads to suffering sometimes. That leads to so much pain. People go through a lot. And talking about that, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite, but I was in New York. My friend took us to a street vendor to try some Mediterranean food. I stood 2 hours, 30 minutes to have 5 minutes of meal. So that's like my experience, putting myself through quite a torture for the sake of that contact, right? I can tell you that I had street Mediterranean food from New York and Manhattan. So people go above and beyond because we identify with, oh, I love this experience. And in essence, there is not actually you in there. It is just the contact between object and sensation, and you just notice it. There's so many things that you don't notice. That is still a part of contact, but you didn't notice it. So to tell that when you, and the hearing part has to do with the Buddha's example, right? When somebody praise you, you feel proud, which is good, but it could be deceiving. And somebody criticizes you, you hear that, you interpret that as unpleasant. That's a type of contact that led you to interpret as this is unpleasant, you react, Maybe you get into conflict, or you get into fight, or you yell back. See that how we did not see contact as contact. We associated contact with me, I, self. That's me. The person is yelling at me. The Buddha did not have that problem, so he was able to stand there as just the sound is coming in. I'm just hearing what he said. There's words. That has nothing to do with who am I, because he does not have that sense of self or the substance that we all want to hold on to. And the other one is perception. And perception has to do with how you get into contact with the world. The perception has to do with your memory, your education, your knowledge, right? Do we associate ourselves with perception? A lot. You are a good storyteller. See, that's yourself now. I can talk about Buddhism a lot. That becomes my sense of identity, right? You associate your life story. Some people have been through Holocaust. Some people have seen the Second World War, seen through many changes in society. That memory, you associate that perception as yourself. You hold on to it. Oh, that's me. That's my identity. And being a certain ethnic group, I know that I have friends from Native American. They tell about their background, their generations. It has become part of their identity. So that is hold on to as that's myself. But in actuality, it's not actually you in there. It's just something that happened. You've heard, dealt with some listening, and you associate it. You put you in there. There's no actual the person's self in there. And the fourth one is disposition. We call sankhara. That's a little more than just a disposition. It's a accumulation of what you've done in the past and what you keep doing. That continue to be you as a person. All the good deeds that you have done becomes a part of your identity. All the good deeds that you have done in the past life becomes a part of your identity. And the things that you're doing, so it has to do with the bad deeds, that becomes a part of your identity. And people hold on to them. None of them has actual essence. They just generate certain results and disappears. There's no thing to hold on to. And the last one is the most difficult one, because that is consciousness. And we all think, oh, that should be the self, right? There should be something that is self, that is substantial, that is absolute. So we give that quality to consciousness. Now, if you have studied Buddhism, you might have heard consciousness, the ability of vijnana, the Pali term for consciousness is vijnana. The word jnana means ability to know. So vijnana means it has ability to cognize, not even knowing, it's a cognizing. Knowing that it is a sensory object visible to eye, this is a sensory object sensible to ear, nose, tongue. So it just can tell what kind of sensory input is that you're receiving, right? So vijnana has no power to create self in it. It is as impermanent, as changing as any other experience. You taste a good ramen or good, Thai food, as long as it stays on your tongue, it has some kind of sensation. You enjoy it, there's a gratification. But after you swallow, what is left? What do you think? Not the piece of thing that's stuck in your teeth, but what is left is more the impression, right? The memory of it. The savor, people, you drink a cup of coffee, you sip on it, while it lasts on your tongue, when the taste buds are taking all the essences, you taste it, yes, very brief time. After you swallow, what is left is just the impression or the memory. Now, same thing with the consciousness. Consciousness can cognize things, right? If you think of all the parts, the appearance, the feeling, the perception, the disposition, they are all processed through consciousness. Whenever they arise, whether it is the present or the past, your consciousness cognizes them. Oh, there's a memory from when I was 12 years old. I used to be so and so, right? And it, just like any other sensation, it arises and it disappears, because that's the only power consciousness can do. It makes that impression and it disappears. But as you do for longer, what happens now? We are accumulating a lot of those memories. You're accumulating a lot of experiences, and you start applying, oh, that is Sam, that is Kitty, that is, I don't know. You give a name, and that becomes the problem with our actual processing, and that's and the consciousness itself has no power. All of these 5 aggregates that I talked, the reason I tried to talk in that sense is to show in Buddhism we don't talk about any permanent, everlasting self. It's just an impression. Just like if you think of going in front of a mirror, right? You see yourself, that's a reflection. It is as silly as of us to think that your reflections still continue to exist in front of a mirror when you walk away. We know that doesn't happen. Every time you go, you see it, you move away, it's gone. So that's how this idea of self come to be. And I talk in this sense, I try to talk about this because it can relate in many ways. It can relate in our life. You know, I talk about psychology, I teach psychology, and I have people talk about, you know, oh, my life is miserable. Now, when you say that, which part you're talking about? So there is, in Buddhism, we talk about, you know, how these five aggregates can turn into the source of suffering, source of dissatisfaction. Because if your impression is wrong, of course you're dissatisfied. You want them to last a certain way, you want them to be a certain way, but it doesn't. So that's why I started with the phrase like yadanichang tang dukkhang. Whatever is impermanent is subject to give you dissatisfaction. Why? That's the nature. You're almost saying, you're almost asking the raindrop to fly backward to the sky. Yes, it will when it evaporates, but the solid raindrop would not, because we know by nature the heavy raindrop is supposed to drop down. And so is true about our physical body and all those sense parts that we talk. There is a natural course in it. And you're trying to change that, in Pali we call sanya vipallasa. We try to distort our view looking at impermanent as permanent. That is fooling ourselves, and that's how it leads to having dissatisfaction. And when it is dissatisfying, that leads to suffering. When you're suffering, that means you cannot control any of your body. That leads to tell that, oh, there is no such thing as self. So no atma or anatma. And not to scare, not to give you like anxiety, holy cow, I'm having an existential crisis now because if there is no self, what is it there? Well, ignorance is there, right? That the whole purpose of this Buddha's teaching is to not give people existential crisis, but awaken. We continue to do this because of our ignorance. And ignorance is not the origin of all problem. That has to do with our misbehavior. We don't manage our senses properly, and that is not the problem either. There is a problem to that, is we are so enslaved by our sensory entertainments. We continue to go for them. We have little sensory control. So there's a lot, it goes continue to going back. There's no one actual original problem. In general, we call, because of ignorance, we continue to suffer, right? Avidya, the ignorance, not in a sense that you are not educated. You know, ignorance does not mean that. Just like the example of Buddha, he was able to stand throughout that criticism and not feel any anger, any frustration, because he is not ignorant to consider whatever the person is saying to me. Even you have that thought, you should be able to analyze, okay, which part of me? Are you talking to my shoulder, my arm, my leg? So if you analyze, you see there's nothing to call self. It's actually we take it as self, which is not even there. And we feel angry. That's why I asked you, I am angry, I am upset. We fuse ourselves so much with this idea of self, life becomes harder. And this may come in many forms. When I'm talking about mundane life, think of religion. Think of, I don't want to talk about other religion. Think of Buddhism itself. There are people, I've been through, like Bhante said, I've been here more than 10 years, coming in and out. I used to travel a lot. I used to interact with hundreds of people from many walks of life. And I'm not enlightened, but I have heard people how they start building identity with religious practices. For example, I'm going to use Russell as example. I have seen people, they reserve a seat. This is so often in my class, right? Student walk to your class, they sit in a certain spot. That is their spot for six months. They would not change. They apply their identity to it. And even it is vacant, nobody sits there. Other people respect that identity. So people come to temple, practice meditation, sit down there, and they build that sense of identity. Oh, this is Russell's spot. Russell might say, this is my spot. So you apply that, and you continue to build on that. That's very basic, but some people might have a little different level. Oh, I practice loving kindness. Oh, I only practice vipassana. I don't do loving kindness. Oh, I only read Theravada. I don't read other Vada. You see that turn into another problem. That is not a solution. That is not, oh, I donate X amount of money, or I build so and so. These teachings are supposed to help, but I have seen many people continue to build on ignorance. You do those actions with ignorance than awareness. So just to conclude with Bhante's meditation, how do we stop it? The one very simple solution, Bhante Kshanti led the meditation, and as simple as pausing for a moment and taking that moment to be with your experience. Because if our identity of self is built through experience, and that itself is the solution as well. You cannot go to Himalayas and meditate there in a freezing cold. Nothing will change. It's in your house, in your seat. When you have a moment, that's where you stop. That's where you deconstruct this identity. And that's why Buddha didn't start a new tradition. There was one extreme materialist, the other extreme spiritualist. Buddha did not start another method. He found a middle way. He did not reject mind, nor he rejected physical body. We need both of them to know who we are and also deconstruct or achieve that enlightenment. That enlightenment is in your body. So stop looking outside, guys. It's in you. You just need to find that through that momentary pause. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sai. I think if anybody have any question, any comment, you can ask. Yes.
Can I ask you an impossible question that combines your disciplines?
And you know what Buddha used to do in those times? He was like, shut up.
That's always an option. So I mean, it seems really clear based on teachings or talk that our ego causes big problems. It's almost as if it's this machine that makes us believe that we're separate, but we're not separate, right? And so my question is, if you zoom all the way back, why do we have an ego? And what would the Buddha say about what is the purpose of taking a mind from rebirth to rebirth, placing it into a situation that's difficult because of this ego that believes we're separate over and over again? Is it a curriculum to refine that, or impossible question?
No, I think it's not impossible. I like to stay in this life. That people try to find, why did we even start? If it is so much suffering, why we begin a life in first place? And there are monks who were very well developed in their mind, try to find the origin of life. They would go, there's one sutta, this monk didn't need to do anything but just answer the natural call and rest for a little bit, and he could live up to 120 years, and he can walk in his meditation power 100 miles per step. So he started looking for the origin of world, origin of life. And Buddha had to call him back. Okay, come back. You're not going to find anything because it's a futile search. And some people try to find how long we're going to go. When does this end? That is again another useless, so to speak. And that's where I joked earlier. When Buddha tried to talk about these problems, he has a way to respond. It's called tapaniya. Some of the questions doesn't need to be addressed because the most important part is this life, right? In this life, we know, if you think, the word ego, it has many meanings. Sometimes it could be associated with the idea of self that is beyond our sensory experience and physical experience. That's what I try to tell you. There is no such thing. We create that concept. It's a concept manifested by sensory experience. And if you separate all the senses, take them away, it's hard to find where is that ego. Who is that ego? And when you put them all together, then there is this idea of ego. So it's more like an illusion that you have an ego, you have a self. As long as that continues, problem continues, because you would deny all other people's sensory experience for the sake of that your sense of self or ego, right? There is an end. There is an end. It's your later part of question was like, is it a curriculum? Not necessarily. It's not a curriculum. It's not a set. Then we would be like deterministic. We have set certain time, but it is up to each individual. Do you want to continue in this journey and infinite time? Because if you do not change anything in this life, there's more than likely this cycle continues. In fact, it get worsened. I think I shared a story about people, the two friends born in a cow dung. So we find all kind of joy in any form of life. So this will continue. We are welcome to accept as it is, or like the Buddha did, who realized there's no end to it. There must be a solution to it, and that's where he found, I need to stop this by taking this momentary pause in the loose sense. How can I stop creating new karmas? And that's what I was referring to, momentary pause. As long as you continue to live without that wisdom and with this impression there is a self, you are generating more karma. Every second you have a thought. Sometimes you like it, you dislike it. If you like it, you hold on to it. You dislike it, you hate it, you try to push it away. You create a new karma. So it's a fascinating energy cycle. It's almost like it continues to generate results and produce new ones. It will happen. It has its own law we call karma niyama. That's how you like it or not, it continues to exist. Just like I'm not get great in physics. I don't know much, but just like gravity, you like it or not, you try to jump, it will pull you down. So there is similar, not the same, similar concept. The karma continues to produce new experience in our life, and it also continues to produce new ones for later. And there's more in karma. Some of them will be resultant or give result in this life. Some of them may take longer, depending on the maturity. We can talk about in a separate day. But that continues. You like it or not, you reject it, you accept it, you suppress it, it will continue. That's the problem. That is the problem. It's not like when it started, how far it will go. Is there a plan for us? No, it's you. You are the authority of that plan. You are the architect of your life. And if you know the right tools and right techniques, I'm assuming you will build a better house for your next life, right? If you are in charge of it. Just like that, you are the authority in your life. You can reduce. As long as there is more karma, it will continue to produce new ones. And the momentary pause, what it happens is, if you think of meditation, and I'm sure Subodhi and every Bhantes and everybody, when you try to practice meditation, you're breathing, right? They tell you, focus on breath, incoming, outgoing. If you feel pain, try not to focus on pain as bad or good. If it is pleasant feeling, try not to hold on to it as good or bad. just experience as it is. Now, that is the moment you stop creating karma. That is the very moment you did not make new one. The pain is probably a result of karma, but you did not put there another seed, like, oh man, I hate this. You put new seed. Expect more fruits. And as soon as the experience comes in and you did not take it, and I talked about that last year, how our consciousness, the process of consciousness turned into a karmic mind. There's a moment you can pause. You can feel it, you can sense it. As soon as you sense it, you try not to have new affiliation, good or bad or neutral. You just notice as it is. There's a feeling. There's a pinch. There's a anger. Rather than like, there's anger, like, yeah, I'm so right when I was angry about this guy, screw that guy. There you added more. That means you planted new seed. So it seems like impossible, but it is possible. It's like almost think of like you're filling your jar with droplets. It will fill. It just takes longer depending on how fast you pour. I don't know if I was any helpful to your question.
It was.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes, I'll take your time, but your lecture is like one college course. Just when you give us a talk. I had a question. I didn't quite. A lot of times, everyday people say you should own it or own up to it.
Own up?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or I own it. I own that. What I did.
Mm-hmm.
I own up. So my question is just, if you try to disassociate from the self and all this kind of thing, but that doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for what you do, right?
That is right.
So yeah, that's the question I have.
Yeah.
Where that comes in, I mean, how responsible are you if all these self is, maybe not, but you're still responsible for which part of you are you still responsible for?
I think that's like still that has to do with our bias. Like we are biased. If it is something pleasant, good, benefiting you, you own it. And if it is opposite, then you're like, that's not part of me. Buddha said, I don't have self, so that's not me. That's sneaky. That's not right. Okay. So I think responsibility is never forsaken from us. And if you are not responsible to anything else, you're responsible for yourself, right? What you do. And it's never separated from. Now, there's a lot more, and there's another course on it. So if you talk about social life, social responsibilities, they are not separate from the spiritual practice. It is not. Some people think that way. No, even for Bhantes, even for monks, they have their own form of social responsibility. It is a part of their spiritual journey. So I know, I've seen, Mr. Russell, I know people come to temple, they abandon everything, they give up all the responsibilities and duties, like, I am done, I just want to enjoy. You're ignoring your responsibilities. That is not Buddhist practice. You continue. That's where, you look at the precepts. You look at the duties that are assigned. They should go along. And there sometimes people get sick of the lifestyle and they go to retreat, which is good practice. You should all try to go for a retreat, not for the sake of running away from everyday life, but more for a learning purpose. But I know I have, even monk friends. I had one monk friend in Nevada. He decided to give up all the social duties and responsibilities. He said he's going to go to a very far remote temple in Sri Lanka. And I challenged him. When you have less distraction, it's easy to meditate, isn't it? There's not much going on. It's easy. But what if you come back now? You're more irritated than before because you didn't have all the distraction. So the best way to do is while you take on those social responsibilities. If you're a father, the Buddha has assigned so many duties. There's a 5 for wife, 5 for husband, 5 for children, 5 for teachers. There's like 61 different duties assigned. You want me to start on that? Not today. But there's 61 duties assigned for, I don't know all of them by heart, but I know most of them. But they are part of your spiritual practice. You cannot be kind without family. You cannot practice forgiveness without enemies. My teacher wrote a book called Devadatta, the Buddha's brother-in-law who tried to murder Buddha 3 times. So my teacher wrote a book. His name was Devadatta. How Devadatta helped Buddha to become super Buddha. I just translated from English. When you have enemy, you get to practice your patience. When you have difficult boss, you get to practice your endurance. So we need society to continue our spiritual journey, and that goes with hold on to your responsibilities. No escaping.
Thank you so much, your wonderful Dhamma talk, Sai.
Thank you, Bhante.
And we're going to chant the page 4 and page 10. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Deluding passions are inexhaustible. I vow to save them all. Dhamma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shadows grieve, and the sick find help relief. thank you again for everybody. Here we have tea and cookies. And next Sunday, Stephen Subodha is going to do a Dhamma talk. And make sure to come next Sunday also. And we have the parking in the backyard, in case if you have difficulties to park in the street. The parking lot open around 10:30 Sunday. Please come and park there and safe for you. Sometimes here is very difficult to parking, I know. So thanks again, Sai Mahrjan, and for everybody being with us. By the power of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, you will be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu,